Hey, welcome everybody. This is Anita, your host for the Messy Middle, One Mom's Journey to Build a Profitable Business. Today I have Rebecca Olson on the show with me. I'm so excited to have her here. I'm going to make sure and look at my notes so I get this right. Rebecca is a life coach for those of us that are ambitious working moms. I just totally love that. And
Yep.
she's my new best friend. So welcome to the show, Rebecca. Thanks for being here.
Oh gosh, so good to be here. I love talking about this subject and, getting these messages out into the world. So, thanks for having
Yeah,
me.
yeah. And you're my people, right? You're my
Yeah.
I'm a Californian by birth and by birthright.
Yep.
And
I mean, not
she's
even just
my
Californian, like our roots are in the same place. Like,
I know.
I love it. So good. So good.
So good. All right. Well, tell us, like, how did you get started? Give us a little bit of like your backstory and what are you really known for? And then we'll dive into the conversation.
Yeah, I love it. So, I am a coach for ambitious working moms because I consider myself an ambitious person. And I find that the ambitious mind, particularly the ambitious female mind,
Mhm.
is unique. And
Yes.
when I became a mom 10 years ago with my daughter, I went through what I like to call the motherhood identity crisis. It's the like,
Oh,
what the heck am I doing with my life? I mean, I
yeah.
was I was 31, I think, at the time, and I just went, wow, I gotta do something more meaningful with my life. Life's too short. Kids just have that way of
Yeah.
showing you what's important, what's not important in life. And
Yeah.
so it was this big crisis moment for me. And I knew I didn't want to give up my career. I didn't want to give up the just being somebody that was career driven. That was such a big piece of who I was and my
Mm,
identity. And I'm a driven person. I loved all of that. And
yeah.
yet I didn't want to keep doing what I was doing, one, but I also found that the motherhood experience was just way slower than I
Mm,
could ever anticipate. And so there was this friction between who I felt I was at this core level and what I wanted. And I had to find a different way. And
yeah.
ultimately that led me through my own sort of 30-year-old crisis, if you will. I discovered a bit more about who I was, what I wanted, went on my own journey, discovered coaching and started coaching women that are ultimately in the same place, that are
Yeah.
wanting to go after their career, whatever that means to them, whether they're entrepreneurs or in their corporate level or whatever it is that they want to do, that they don't want to give up. And they
Yeah.
want to also have the motherhood experience that they want and feel that sense of balance and sanity at the same
Yeah.
time.
Oh, that's so good. I can remember, maybe you can relate to this. I remember when my daughter was first born, and I still was working in the corporate space as a software exec. And I can remember I thought, okay, this is before I had a nanny. I just had come back to work. We traveled a bunch as a family, and I can remember thinking, okay, I'll nurse her real quick, feed her real quick, put her down real quick, and then go do a bunch of work, and then come back.
Yeah,
And in my mind, it was like, yes, I'll get all this stuff done. And about a
totally.
week went by, and I was like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm not doing a good job.
It's
I
so
need
it's
some
so
help.
interesting how we think that we're just going to get back to the way things were, right? And
Oh,
so
yeah.
often I have that conversation with my clients that they tell me they just want to get back to the
Mm.
productivity level that they were at, or they just want to
Oh,
get
yeah.
back to being able to work out and consistently, or it's something that they want to get back to. And I always have
Mm.
to remind them, like, life is not backwards, it's always forward. Like, your
Yeah.
greatest potential is always ahead of you, and here we are in this season of life, and we got to carve out what are those priorities today moving forward and figure out
Mm.
new ways and new rhythms, because life is never going to look like what it looked like then, and success then is not what success is today. So we have to define that for today.
Mm.
It's so important, but it's so interesting how I was in the same boat. I was like, oh, I'm just going to come back from maternity leave. I'm just going to go back to normal.
Right.
There's no
Yeah.
new normal. I
Normal.
mean, it's
Normal
like
while your
you're in a,
baby's like, are you
oh
kidding
my
me? Could
gosh,
you come
it's
over
like a
here and feed
completely
me?
different normal. Yeah, it's crazy. It's craziness. So big
Meanwhile,
transition.
like your blouses don't fit the same anymore.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's not. That's
Yeah, for
awesome.
sure, for sure. You're
I
crying in the
had a.
bathroom. I did a lot of
Ah.
crying in the bathroom
Oh
during that
yes.
first year of life. So I
Yeah.
don't know another mom. I don't know another mom that went back to a corporate life that didn't,
Mm.
hasn't experienced that as well.
Right.
So
Right. Oh, amen to that. And thank goodness for amazing other people that come around, especially when there I like two thoughts that come to my mind, Rebecca, and I'd love to dive into these a little bit and get your thoughts on them. Number one is thank you, Jesus, for other women or just people that come alongside us, like help us in that new season, right? And then
Yes,
the other thing
definitely.
is I had a sweet friend of mine. As I get older, I wish I would have paid more attention to this, especially as a younger mom. And my youngest kids are teenagers now. Um, and I have an older stepson. I wish she would say all the time, like, Anita, just acknowledge the season that you're in and embrace the season that you're in. And
Hmm.
the older I get, the more I'm willing, probably that's probably more than anything, the more that I'm willing and able to recognize, like, oh, like for better, for worse, this is actually just a season that we're in.
Yeah.
Because there are
Yeah.
so many times, like to your point earlier, I want to go back to something that there was, or maybe you're looking at other girlfriends and thinking in your mind, you're thinking the lie. They have more freedom because their kids are out of diapers or they're not nursing anymore or blah blah blah
Yep.
blah blah. All these things, by the way, they're not true. Let's just set somebody free here.
Yeah.
But the comparison of
Yeah.
my life doesn't look like it used to, or my life doesn't look like my girlfriend's life does.
Sure.
And that just, it kind of just like wrecks us. And I don't know. Everybody knows who listens to the show. We're going to put our conversation in the framework of God. If you believe something else, that's totally fine. Just know that this is how we're going to have a conversation. And so, right, the comparison, really the thief of some of our joy is the
Always.
comparison of other. And I remember this. I remember it almost like it was yesterday, thinking, well, if I just got back to this, or if I just moved forward and my kids were a little bit older, and then like being like, oh, wait a minute, stop. That's no, no, no,
Yeah.
no. This is where we are, Anita. This is exactly where we are right here, right now. And I actually had so much more peace the times that I was willing to do that when I was younger, I had more peace in
Yeah, no
that
question.
season right then. And I actually enjoyed my people.
Always. Yeah, there is this, we do this even before kids for sure, but I think you're right. There is something that happens when we have kids because we're watching time. It's like a daily
Oh,
clock watching our children get older,
yeah,
particularly when they're little, and you're like
yeah,
swapping out clothes sizes, by the week or something like that at
right.
times. And you're just like, wow, where's the time? Where's the time going? But there's this misunderstanding that the life that you want, the happiness, the joy, the peace, the success, all of the internal things that God tells us we can have, within the fruits of the spirit, the it, it's as if it's out there, like we're going to
Mm,
arrive at it at another season when my kids are just a little bit older, or when they're sleeping through
mm.
the night, or if I
Oh
could just get
gosh.
that client, or if I can
Yeah,
just reach this income level, or if my husband would just help a little bit more. It's this something that is external to you. It's
yeah.
this belief that something external to you, if it changed,
Mm,
that internal experience that we all desire would be possible for us. And
yeah,
I think that I agree, it is a lie that robs us of all of what's possible for us, because he promises that all of those things, the joy and the peace and the calm and the success, is possible for us today in
yeah,
our current circumstance. And
yeah,
it's such an important conversation that I have with all of my clients, for sure, to be talking about what is it that you want today, and
yeah,
what do you believe you has to change in order for you to get it. And let's only focus on the things that you could ever change, which is your
yeah.
own thoughts, your own feelings, your own actions, because God
Mm,
promises that it's possible for you today, not when somebody
yeah,
else does something, or when your kid
right,
is a little bit older, or when the
right.
client does something, or whatever it is, right? It's possible for you today with him.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So the flip side of that for somebody who's listening is if we continue on the habit. So what Rebecca was talking about is part of it is a habit. And this is what I experienced. This is what I have had also breakthrough in. If I continue on the habit of making everything like just beyond like arm's reach, and I continue on that habit that I'm not going to be happy until whatever later, that's a
Yeah.
habit, that's a mindset habit. Then as you get older, it gets harder and harder and harder to break.
Yeah, for sure.
So just somebody who's listening right now, know that life doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to be happy later. Like there's something that you can celebrate and be happy and acknowledge. And sure, it might not be exactly what you want, or where you're going. Not to, I love goals. I love going after things. I'm totally down with all of that. Like I am a doer and an achiever and
Yeah.
ambitious in so many ways. But don't allow yourself to get in the mindset that somehow what you want is beyond arm's reach. And it's always going to be that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
the
100%.
the other part of that too is, and I've fallen into this, and I know a lot of us that have been in the corporate space, we're kind of like conditioned and trained in the corporate space that, okay, you reach the goal and then you're going to be satisfied when you reach the goal. And you're kind of like,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, I had that in my corporate career,
No
super
question.
successful career, reached the top of the ladder, looking around going, is this it? Really?
Yeah.
You got to be
Yeah.
kidding me. Like I was not satisfied, and I was not satisfied in any area of my life. I wasn't satisfied in my marriage. I wasn't satisfied in my work life. I wasn't satisfied in the
Yep.
all the things that I was doing, but it wasn't because of anybody on the outside of me. It was all internal.
It was all
Um,
internal. Yeah.
yeah.
I, 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 I think it's a lie to believe that you, if you satisfaction, is in something other than you ultimately, right? And ultimately it comes from him. It comes from, being aligned with the mindsets of God, if you will. But if
Yeah.
you can't feel successful today in today's current circumstance, you will not feel successful once you achieve the thing that you have set out to achieve.
Yeah.
Because success is an internal experience, right? It's a
Mm,
feeling, it's an emotion that we all want in our body. It's this feeling of like groundedness and peace and
mm,
just celebration. Those
yeah.
are internal experiences that we want, and those internal experiences comes from the way we think. So
Yeah.
if we're always thinking that it's going to be, once I achieve that, then I will feel successful,
Yeah.
then you're always going to have that mindset no matter how much you achieve and whatever goal you set, right? So
Yeah.
we have to get out of that pattern. So definitely a lot of work that I do with my clients is about today and cultivating joy and satisfaction and peace today,
Yeah.
and learning how to go after goals at the same time. We
So
oftentimes
powerful.
think that those things are opposite on some
Yeah.
level, right? And for me in my own business, right? It's me cultivating the satisfaction with the level of income and where I'm at in my business today, and celebrating it and feeling so much joy, and holding loosely the idea that I want more.
Mm,
And those two
yeah.
things can happen simultaneously, and it's all about cultivating the right thoughts and feelings and kind of groundedness in in this moment.
Yeah. That's so powerful. I love that. I love that. So take me through like a process. So if I'm a client of yours, like what are some of the things that I heard a lot of mindset stuff and a lot of like acknowledging what's going on internally. I love that. Because don't we know we can go after goals and we can get the thing, but if the feeling like, because it does, the new car, hooray, I got it. And then it fades away and all of a sudden it doesn't feel like
Very
a new
quickly.
car. You're like, wait a
then
minute, what happened?
then the child cries and it all comes back. It's like, then the
That
kid
or
throws the milkshake in the car and then it's like all over.
I was gonna say, or the husband drops the French fries in the little crevice.
You can never get out, and it smells like French fry for weeks. Yeah, for sure.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So kind of like walk me on a journey that I would go through, because I know you've really cultivated an expertise in this area. You've cultivated systems and structure that help a client like really walk through the journey that we go on um, as ambitious moms, like who really notice like whether you want to work or you need to work, this is for you. Whether
yeah, no
you
question.
have exactly the same, you hear the same kind of goals in my life or Rebecca's life or your life, or you have different goals, like this is totally for you, right?
Yeah,
So listen for the nuances, because we're not trying to compare ourselves to one another, your story to my story to their story or anything like that. But what I'm encouraging everybody who's listening today, like take notes and listens for the elements that you can say, okay, that not only resonates with me, but here's how it actually applies to my life. Because don't we know that we all have different stories? We all have different circumstances. Our kids, like the challenges I had with my kids when they were toddlers and I was working full time, is very different than the challenges I have as an entrepreneur and a homeschooling mom. And now my kids are a little
Yeah.
bit older, right? Like,
Yeah.
so listen for some of those things as Rebecca just coaches us, like, coach us. Love to
Yeah.
hear about it.
Yeah, definitely. We have been talking quite a lot about what's going on internally, and it's important because I call my approach an inside out approach. We
Mm,
can't really change things externally, meaning we can't change our habits, you can't create systems, you can't change behaviors, you can't do any of that stuff externally it, with any level of success, for any
mm, yes.
long lengthy period of success without changing what's going on inside of you. So it has to, there's always going to be both going on
Love
simultaneously.
it.
So an inside out approach is the way I look at creating an ambitious and balanced life. And the first, I call these the 3 C's. So I'm going to just walk you through them a little bit. So the first C is clarity, and it's clarity over you, and it's
Mm,
clarity over what you want. And so the
mm,
you piece of that is really naming who you are.
mm.
The not the what you do, not the external pieces of you, but like the unique wiring that God
Yeah.
created you with.
Oh,
That is
beautiful.
special to you, and that
Mhm.
exists apart from you as a mom. It exists apart from you as an entrepreneur, or somebody in the corporate world, or your job, or even being a wife or a friend, right? You exist apart from all of those roles that you play in your life.
Mm,
And
love it.
in order for us to make real external change, to change the way that you operate, your behaviors, your patterns, your overworking behaviors, things like that, your brain has to not feel like it's going to, like it's having an identity crisis all of the time,
Mm,
right? Because that is
okay.
what tends to happen. If you say I'm gonna I need to not work as much as I've been working. Like, let's just say that that's a goal, right? Like, I need to contain my work. I don't want to work 50, 60 hours a week, and I don't know how to stop myself. That's, really common for ambitious people to just keep working on some level.
Hmm.
The moment that you decide to contain your work time
Hmm.
to like 40 hours, let's say, and make that a goal, what happens is your brain freaks out.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, I can't, who am I if I don't keep working? They're
Mm,
going to think that I'm failing them. They're going to think I'm not good enough. They're going to, oh my gosh, who am I if I can't achieve at this level, right? Your brain freaks out and you just go back to working 50 or 60
mm.
hours because
Wow.
that's the most natural thing to do.
Yeah.
So in order to stop your brain from freaking out, at least temper it down a little bit.
Yeah.
We need your brain to see that you exist apart from your job and the roles that you play, that you can just be grounded in who you are. And so that's a big part of the clarity piece. Coming out of that is also going to be clarity on what are the most important things to you, your priorities, your
Mm,
day-to-day priorities, your bigger goals in life. Like, we want that to flow out of that groundedness. And so
okay.
those two things are really that first C, clarity, knowing those things. Notice how all of that is that's an internal process. We're
Hmm.
naming things that are inside of you, probably putting words to things that you have never put words to. That my clients say that all the time. They're like, well, this is just important. Isn't it important to everyone? Like, shouldn't
Yeah.
everybody just want, feel like they should be successful? And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, yes.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
maybe not. It doesn't really matter. Why is it important to you? We need to get your brain to understand those things apart from, anything else. So it can be really challenging to put words to things that you've never put words to, but it also is so freeing when you do that, when you see
Mm,
yourself apart from anything else that you do.
I love that. So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that then leads us into what I call the second C, which is confidence. And
Okay.
confidence is obviously, there's a big part of the who in confidence as well. But in this case, when I speak about confidence, I speak about really believing that the life that you want, the happiness, the joy, the peace, is available to you and you are worthy of it. Which was
Mm,
two very different than, it's like I named all the things that I wanted. I named who I was and my uniqueness, but but if you don't believe that
mm,
you can then take the uniqueness that God gave you
yeah.
and then put use to it, make the impact that you want to make and make the change that you want to make, or be the mom that you wanted to be, or be the human that you wanted to be, or have the success, then it won't matter.
Yeah.
Right? We have to have this deep down belief in ourselves and the things that we want, and believe that it's possible for us, and that we are we're deserving of it.
Mm.
And so again, that has a lot of internal aspects to it. That's us kind of examining mindsets and ways of thinking. We were talking earlier before we got on the call. I mentioned something that I teach is called the enough triad. That's the belief that I am enough, I'm good enough, and I'm doing enough. That kind of falls into this confidence category. The enough triad does. Like, those are 3 super core beliefs that you have to have if you want to create a balanced life, right? Enoughness is kind of this belief of like sufficiency, right? Like, I don't need to do anything more. Like, it's enough. I don't need to be anything more. I'm enough, right? It stops us. It's our ability to put boundaries up around our ambition. And so we have to believe at that core level of that enoughness. And God teaches about our enoughness, infinitely throughout the Bible, and reminds us of who we are at this beautiful core level that we can turn to scripture to find that as well. But we cultivate those 3 beliefs as well as we talk about confidence in creating this life that we want to have. And then that is where, so that's all internal. And then now we get to go to the external, which is the 3rd C, which I call control over your time and control over your energy, right? Doing the things that you actually want to do, having what I call a priority first schedule, or a values based schedule, where what you want, the things that are most important to you, is actually calendared in first before you get to put in anybody else's goals or priorities ultimately. Right. And so learning how to do that, though, is remembering again that you are valuable no matter what anybody else thinks, that you're enough no matter if anybody else is disappointed in the way that you decide to schedule your life, or how you decide to what you decide to put your energy towards or not towards, right? I mean, that ultimately what's going to happen is people are going to be disappointed. People are going to wish you did things differently. People are going to have to wait on you longer than might be comfortable. People are going to continue working into the evening. You're going to get pinged at all hours of the night, and you're not going to respond. And people might be frustrated with that, right? Because those things are their priorities. They're not yours.
Right.
And what ultimately needs to happen is, as those boundaries get put into place and the big feelings start to come up, you need to be able to control, ultimately staying on task, deciding to follow your priorities regardless of what any of those things are. And ultimately that comes down to having first knowing what those priorities are, learning how to schedule them, and then ultimately learning how to keep them, which is of course the hardest part as we deal with your big emotions, their big emotions, and everything else in between that can come up.
I love that. What I hear from you, Rebecca, is such an undercurrent of intentionality. Undercurrent of intentionality towards ourselves, and the integrity that we have towards ourselves and then out to others. I believe that we are only people of integrity first when we follow through on what we say we're going to do. I can't be walking integrity towards you if I'm not already being walking in integrity towards me first.